6-week ABS workout. We're going to be in our front plank position. I'll show you the most progressed and then how to regress it along the way. Initially, I want us going elbows and toes out into a nice long position, trying to keep our back nice and flat. Don't let ourselves sag. Also don't want our hips up higher than our shoulders and our toes. Hands separated here, keeping yourself in a nice solid position. Regress this, we can bring it down to our knees. Same concept. And then lastly, bring it up to a high plank position from a push-up position. We can also vary this into our push-up position, keeping yourself nice and tight. We'll progress over the week, or it's gonna be over the next 6 weeks, 20 seconds to 60 seconds. We're working on our obliques, so we're gonna set up lateral to the ground. We're gonna use one shoulder into the forearms to get ourselves set. Make sure that we're nice and stable. Another thing to remember is to not let your chin collapse into your chest. So I'm keeping myself in a nice upright position. This other hand, you can keep it to your side. We can bring it up for balance. Now, this is a pretty difficult movement, a lot of stress on the shoulder. Let's modify this by taking a little bit of our body weight away. Let's bend our inside knee, and now we have a little bit less weight to deal with, but we're still emphasizing our obliques on the side. Next modification, I can use this hand to kind of help act as a kickstand to take a little bit of stress off the shoulder. Hold here nice and tight without letting yourself move too much side to side. We're working the back of the body, the posterior chain. So we're gonna be on the ground. We're gonna try to extend our body as long as we can. Arms extended, head in line with my spine. So we don't wanna be looking up in front of us. See, that kind of puts a crank through my neck. Head down to the ground. We're gonna lift our shoulders and our feet at once. And we're gonna maintain this posture throughout. Really try to minimize ourselves shaking or having to come down to the ground. If you feel a little bit of tension through your lower back, typically means that we are arching too much. Right? What we want to do is we want to get a little bit more activation. So I want you to squeeze your butt as hard as you can. It's going to get your hips in line with your back, and it'll take pressure off that lower back. Right? We're still going to get that activation that we're looking for. It'll still be challenging, but we don't want that pressure in the back, okay? Mountain climbers, we're going to be in a push-up position, trying to keep our hips nice and tight, minimizing the amount of movement through our upper body. We're trying to keep our core nice and engaged. Modify this. We can do a smaller movement. My toe can touch up here. I can practice 1 foot up, 1 foot down, slow the movement down just a little bit. Or I can keep myself moving nice and tight. The next modification, if from the ground is a little bit too difficult, let's grab ourselves a chair or something to elevate our bodies off of the ground. And all we have to work with a little bit less body weight resistance. Movement is dynamically the same. We're still gonna get those heart rates up. It's still power, it's still active. It's gonna be awesome. The reverse crunch is gonna be from the floor. I'm gonna lie on back. Head is gonna be relaxed in our first progression. Hands can either go underneath our hips to keep our back nice and flat, or we can have them out to the side for a little bit more of a challenge. Feel it out the first time, see what works best for you. We're using our legs to initiate this movement. We're working on our lower abdominals. What I want to focus on is that the back maintains a flat position or contact with the ground. So if you're hyperextending your arch, we're not going to get the most out of this movement. Little drill, pull your belly button in or squeeze or suck your belly button in and see if you can make contact with your lower back. If you can, try to maintain that throughout the entire movement. So we're going to slowly let our legs lower and then we're going to bring ourselves right back up. What we're not doing, I'm not pulling my knees in as far as I can. Reason for that is that my actual abs come out of contraction or relax when I'm in this flex position. The goal is to keep your muscles under tension the entire time. So kind of find that range where you still feel that challenge and you're not completely relaxed, and then lower the legs from there. This way, the abs are constantly engaged, you're constantly working, and you're constantly feeling that challenge. Of course, if it's hard to maintain, come up for a second, relax, catch your breath, and then go right back into that next set. Now, if this feels easy, hands behind the head. This way we get a little bit more engagement through our upper abdominals as well as our lower abdominals. We get a little bit more bang for our buck. Still never quite completely bringing my abs out of contraction, so that I'm always working. and maintaining my posture. We're gonna be lying back on the floor. Ideally, we're gonna have our feet straight into the air, keeping our hip flexors nice and active. If maintaining this foot position is pretty difficult, go ahead and bend the knees and hold here. Still getting the hips a little bit involved, but it's not as stressful. The toe touch portion comes with us literally reaching up and trying to make contact with our toes. The objective is not necessarily to touch the toes, but it's to get our upper half in a crunch position. By reaching for the toes, it gives you a destination to shoot for, making kind of it easy to figure out when you complete a rep and when you relax it. If it's difficult to keep those legs straight, bend the knees here, hands either behind the head or arms straight up in front. Come up so you can feel that nice tightness and engagement, a little bit of the burn in the upper abs, and then come right back down. When you finish your rep, the head makes contact with the ground. Do not keep the neck flexed the entire time. It's gonna hurt. Go ahead, if you do feel like you're putting a lot of strain through your neck, hands behind the head, just to simply act as a rest. I'm not using my hands to bring my head up. My head is coming with my abs. What I don't want is you to drive your chin into your chest so that you're doing neck crunches as opposed to these small movements at the top of the abs. Lying down from the floor, feet down, hips in contact. I'm gonna use my hand to help support my neck just a little bit. And what I wanna do is I wanna place my feet far enough away to kind of give me a challenge for I'm ready to reach down so that I feel this contraction right there in the hip. And then I'm gonna bring myself away, trying to open myself up. And then going back into that crunch. The further that I can stretch away, the more exposure that muscle gets to a stretch. And that's ideally what I wanna get, is I wanna try to get as much extension or as much stretch in the muscle as possible so it gets the most work done. I know that it feels like the more that you contract, the more the muscle gets actually worked, but it's actually the opposite. It's counterintuitive. The more that we can get a stretch and more that we can tear that muscle apart, sorry for that word, but it's actually what happens. If you're tearing that muscle apart, it's gonna rebuild into a stronger, tighter, leaner looking tissue. So take your time on this, time under tension. I'm reaching down, touching the toes if that's easy. Take the feet, move them a little bit further away. Reach, and then right back up. If the head starts to bother you at all, bring yourself down between sets, lower the number of reps down. Our main emphasis is here, not to strain our neck. We're opening ourselves up and we're closing ourselves off. So we're gonna get ourselves nice and long, make sure you have room both above and below. You're gonna open yourself up, slight bend at the knees, reach up from above. You're gonna bring your knees to your chest and simultaneously bring your chest to your knees. This is coming up into the crunch portion. Reach my hands down, nice and contracted, and then I'm opening myself up. When I'm opening myself up though, I'm not just letting gravity take you down. Control the entire time, and then bring yourself up, exhale. Slowly inhale, exhale. As I lower myself, you're gonna begin to feel that back try to arch up every time, right? The hips are trying to rotate. If you feel that every time, you're not getting the most out of your abs, we're not fully engaged. So what I want us to do, keep these legs in a little bit closer. Don't bring yourself out as far, because it's gonna put a lot more force in your back. Close the movement off, make it a little bit smaller, and stay in this tighter range. All right, so practice it. If 2 feet at the same time are a little bit more difficult, you can take that same movement and we can turn it into one-sided dominant. Switch sides. Go, play around with it, see what works best. Just make sure you're staying in tight, getting that full extension with that leg, and then closing yourself off. We're set up so that we are crossed over our legs. I don't want ourselves crossed in this form. I want you crossed out so the hips nice and opened. The leg that's doing the work will be my left leg in this instance. Head's back and relaxed. Again, we're focused on the lower back, maintaining that pressure down so that we are not arched the entire time. So big deep breath in, pull your belly button in through your spine, try to make contact with your lower back to the ground, and let's maintain that throughout the exercise. Hands can be out to the side or slightly underneath your butt for a little bit extra stability. You're gonna drive that leg up as far as we can and slow lower on the way down. My leg cross isn't doing much of the work. I'm using this leg to really isolate that left side. and get the work done. Come in for that contraction, nice and tight. Slow control, let the muscle lengthen, and then back up nice and tight. It's not about how many reps we do. It's really about how much of a contraction, how much blood can we force into that area. We get that work. Same setup as our normal mountain climbers. The only difference is where our elbows are coming across our body. So we get a little bit of a transverse, a little rotational work on this mountain climber. Push-up position. I'm gonna bring my right leg across my body towards my left elbow. Again, that transverse plane. Again, that rotational crunch in there. Fast as we want, trying to minimize that head movement. Again, I don't want my hips down. I don't want my butt up too high. We can minimize the tension by going just a little bit slower. You can bring yourself up on a platform. Let's take a little bit of your body weight out of the equation. Bring yourself up a little bit higher. Again, you decide on how quickly we're going. Focus on crossing over, squeezing, and then bringing that leg back where it came from. We're gonna be on all fours on the ground. Make sure you have enough room both behind you and in front. Hands will be underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. We're gonna use our opposite arm and our opposite leg coming off the ground at the same time. All the way out. Head is gonna stay in neutral position. Don't have it cranked, looking at whatever's in front of us. Keeping ourselves nice and tight. We're gonna bring our elbow and our knee together, and then we're coming right back out to that extended position. Knock our reps out, switch sides. Now, if bringing your elbow and your knee together is a little bit difficult, challenge yourself by just simply bringing your arm up, your leg extended, and then back down together. If bringing your arm and your leg off the ground at the same time is still a challenge, try one at a time. Leg first, find your balance. Hand first, or hand second. Hold, and then bring yourself right back down. As you progress, get a little bit better with it, just move on to the next movement. We're gonna be set up in a side plank position, a little bit modified with our bottom leg, knee bent, top leg will be extended, and our upper arm reached overhead. You're gonna bring your elbow and your knee together, extend back out, and then reset and do your next rep. Make contact and drive yourself right back out. If you felt like this is a little bit too challenging, rather than bringing our knees together, just come up just a little bit and then pause and bring yourself right back out. All right? We're back on the floor. Make sure you have enough room both behind us and in front of us. Flutter kicks are going to be using our legs. So we're trying to get ourselves stretched out. I'm going to use my hands underneath my hips just to help support my back. If we want a little additional challenge, hands behind the head and do your flutter kicks from this position. But as we're starting off, let's go hands behind the hips. Head back, relax. For our flutter kicks, we're gonna work on some big ranges. So try to get as much range through those hips as you can. If you start to feel like this is a little bit too challenging on your hips, lower yourself down, smaller ranges. Next, bring those legs in a little bit closer and move from this regress position. And then finally, if you guys wanna really challenge yourself, again, hands behind the head here, upper abs nice and engaged, and nice and slow back and forth. Line ourselves down on the floor. One hand will be out to the side just to give us a little support. My other hand will be behind my head. What I want to do is I'm going to come up with my abs. Do not use your hand to elevate yourself or to pull at the neck. I'm coming up and then I'm rotating that elbow right across my opposite knee. And then I'm bringing myself right back down, trying to create as much range of motion as I can. When you come up to the top, it's important. Don't try to fight for some extra inches here. All you're doing is pulling your chin into your chest. Keep that head nice and relaxed as you go across. You're gonna feel everything engaged as you're going into that contraction and as you bring yourself back down. There's add a little bit of extra challenge. When you come back down, don't completely rest. Keep the abs nice and engaged as you move into that next repetition. Make sure you breathe throughout. If you start to hold your breath, you'll notice yourself fatigue that much quicker. You're gonna set up in that push-up position again. You're gonna drive your leg across to your opposite elbow, then do your same elbow. Switch legs, cross elbow, same side. As you progress with this, the leg can either touch the ground each time or you can keep it in the air. Modify this by bringing it off the ground just a little bit. Same idea. Grab a chair, go against a wall, move from there. We're gonna set ourselves up on the ground. Legs are gonna be straight in the air with our toes tucked back towards us. We're gonna use one arm and we're gonna reach across our body and then back down. The other arm will be down just to help with support. It can be straight, it can be bent. It's entirely up to us. Reach across and then back down. The legs are straight to add a little bit of hip flexor activation. If it's difficult to keep those legs straight and you're a little tighter in your hamstring, bend those knees, come into a tabletop position, and keep going with those reaches. You can reach straight in the air, or you can reach a little bit more across the body. Same thing set up. I'm going the opposite side. Reaching across. High as I can. Get that engagement. We're going to set ourselves up, slightly hinged backwards. Shoulders are going to be off the floor. For starters, we're going to keep our legs into the ground. I'll show you how to progress it in a second. With our Russian twist, what I want to do is my chest is going to follow my hands. What we tend to see is that someone just uses the shoulders. We want to get our entire trunk involved in this movement. Take it as far as you can comfortably. Don't force the movement. It's not a stretch. All right, we're just trying to work our core in the range that feels most comfortable for us. As we progress through this, we can bring our feet off the ground, add a little stability to it. My chest is still following. As you can see, my eyes are also following as well. Challenge yourself if that's difficult. Bring yourself up into a higher position. My feet are still down, or you can even anchor your feet down with something like the chair in the rec room, weights, or if you got a family member around, throw them on there. Sit yourself back. The further we go back, the more challenging it'll be. The more upright we are, the easier it'll be. So find an area that's comfortable for you, that allows you to hit your range and your time, and then we'll progress from there. We're down on the floor. The tabletop position is with our knees in this 90-degree angle. Heads back and relax. These hands are straight through, and we're going to angle ourselves to go right between those legs and then back down. Hands are extended just to kind of give you a point of reference. We're trying to reach towards those toes and back down. Bring yourself up, nice and tight, get that contraction, and bring yourself back down. The knees being up allows our back to stay flatter into the ground. And that's our main goal. What we don't want is this big hyperextension arch while we're trying to do these crunches. It takes the emphasis away from the core. And that is not what we're trying to do. So keep yourself, your lower back pinned in the ground. Bring yourself on up. Neck is nice and relaxed in neutral position. Up and back down. Exhale as we go up. Inhale as I come back down. Head makes contact with the floor. If your knees and your hips are a little bit tight, bring your feet down to the ground. Progressive, modify the movement to this range, no problem. This one is a great one to work on keeping our spine nice and tight. So our setup, tabletop positions with our knees, arms are extended above. Dead bug, because my arms are extended, I should look similar to a dead bug. Probably not, right? But what we're gonna do is opposite arm, opposite leg, maintaining our lower back into the ground. This is important. This is what's gonna force your abs to do a lot more work. So, belly button, shove it in through your spine, get your abs nice and tight, stay flexed. All right, so I'm active as I extend my arm and my leg, not allowing it to come all the way to the ground. Relax. I'm keeping myself as tense as I can right along this anterior line, and then I'm bringing myself back to center. Our goal is to bring yourself out to a challenging distance, opposite arm, opposite leg, where you feel everything through your midline tight, and then back to center. All right, everybody's range is going to be a little bit different. Challenge yourself in how far you can go. Just make sure you are flexed and your lower back is pinned to the ground the entire time. Modify this movement by not extending the legs, but simply keeping them bent here and then back to center. Just moving these arms and limbs just a little bit away from your midline being your core, and then back to center. Opposite arm, opposite leg. We are set up on the floor, our knees are bent, feet are about shoulder width apart. What I want you to do is initiate this movement. We're gonna actually tuck our butts or tuck our hips underneath of us. So you squeeze your butt, you should feel those hips rotate. The reason we do that is when we come up, I want you to feel that engagement, that contraction early on. What happens is if we don't, we tend to hyperextend, and all we're doing here is putting pressure into our lower back, and that's not the main goal. We wanna really hit those glutes hard. So rotate those hips, Drive up, squeeze. You're going to feel that tightness and contraction very, very early in this movement. And then as I come down, I'm still keeping those hips rotate, where I'm not going to completely relax on the ground. Right? My muscle is not going to relax either. So the muscles stay under tension and I get the most work done. Challenge yourself by bringing your feet a little bit further away from your midline and then drive on up. Exhale on the way up, inhale on the way down. Full body, opposite arm, opposite leg. We're going to bring ourselves up to the floor. Again, lower back flexed into the ground, so pull your belly button into your spine, keep it nice and tight. Hands are going to be behind the head. My hands are not forcing my head up. I'm just keeping them there, and I'm going to use my abs to bring myself across the body. All right? So what we're doing, opposite arm, opposite leg. Let's start off with our feet into the ground. We're bringing our opposite leg into our opposite arm, and then slowly back down. And then switching. Bring yourself back to rest each time. Once we progress a little bit, we can bring our feet a little bit further away from us. I can keep my head into a little bit more of a flexed position. And back up. And back down. Completing the movement before I move into the next phase. Then finally, letting my feet hang off the ground, never letting them come to the floor. All the way up, all the way down. Again, it's not about speed. Don't have to cycle through it very quickly. The slower you go, the more work you get done. Save this workout and join us for the 6-week abs workout.